Hello, darling. Yes, I figured I'd dress up a little, but, well, I don't plan on going anywhere. This is more so for you. Well, that's partially true. Um, I I needed to tell you about everything. Like, I promised you that I would talk about everything when sometime soon. I never really specified, just that I would. And I am many things, but I always want to keep my word. So, here I am to keep my word. And, well, um, I dressed professionally, hoping I could bring this up to you professionally. Although, it might have just been better to tell you that I think you should sit down and I'll explain to you what's happened so far. So, as I've told you, I'm not even 1,000 yet. I'm 600 something. Again, I told you, age is just a number after long enough. And, well, all the way back to the beginning, my mother was a vampire, and my father was a human. When they had me, I was half vampire, half human. Of course, my mother loved me. She thought I was so beautiful as her son. But when my father, the Spaniard, had the news spread like wildfire and that he had a child with the vampire, they accused him of witchcraft. And, well, in a shocking turn of events, my father had betrayed my mom. And he had tried to throw her under the bus in hopes that, oh, it was mind control or I was being manipulated, sort of thing, as the people would accept him. But this is the 1400s we're talking about, so no one believed him. And he was hung and burned. And that's about all I know about my father. But growing up, my mother tried to raise me like the rest of the children. She had tried to make me attend school, even altered my appearance to an extent with very, very primitive sort of makeup and disguises. Although the disguises are still fairly impressive, even by today's standards. Although the makeup was lacking, but you can't exactly complain about what you don't have. Or, yeah, so, the disguise had worked, although one thing I found out early on was about the sunlight. Now, there's a lot of rumors that have been spread about vampires, and some of those are true, but not all of them are true. And so rather than specify, oh, this is true and this isn't true and all this, when we get to a point where like, oh shoot, or something, we'll explain how that works. But anyways, as a kid, I wanted to go play outside. And as a kid, the sunlight well, I don't think I really need to explain too much on that, but you'd think I'd burn up to a crisp. But that actually wasn't true. Being half human came with some benefits, although I am still half vampire. So, whereas my mom would get, her skin would start to smoke, kind of like how bacon smokes on a hot pan, kind of like that, but slowly, like, eating away at her. So, of course, she tried to avoid as much of that as possible. Me, though, that didn't happen nearly to the same extent. And if anything, I would just get a really nasty sunburn. Although sunburns were almost guaranteed because I burned pretty easily. But hey, not bad for not dying. So, my mother's disguises worked exceptionally well, and I was able to keep the illusion on until I was like around 8. And the other kids, they, to be honest, they weren't very nice, and this was before they even knew I was the vampire kid. So I was like, these guys aren't cool. I know they're not. And then, of course, once they found out, they even treated me worse, if you can believe that. So, yeah, these guys were no good. But there was one person that I was like, that person's pretty alright. And her name was Maria. Maria was kind of outcasted like I was, so we had something to relate to. Although where I was a vampire, I wouldn't say crippled. She was sickly. Where she had like pretty much, by today's standards, it didn't sound that bad. But again, this is the 1400s. So she had common diseases now that almost spilled certain death back in the day. So nobody wanted to be around her because they thought she was the plague and she would kill them. And I didn't really mind, because we don't get sick. And if we do, I've never seen it. Like, and that's saying something, considering the fact I've been alive for 600 years and I've never had a sick day. Anyway, fast forward, or flash back. We hung out and we were friends, but she managed to survive a lot. Like, she initially had the flu, and then she had the chicken pox, and the last one was malaria. Now, she had these over the course of years and years, and it was a long fighting battle. So the years did wear on her. And when she got to malaria, the doctors were all but certain that she wouldn't make it this time. And when I saw her there, I was so scared that she wouldn't make it, because she had made it every other time when the doctors had claimed that she wouldn't make it, but she held out hope. She stood tall, no matter how dire the situation was. But after so many years, her body had grown weak, and she cried and she told me she can't keep doing this anymore, that her strength isn't what it used to be, and she doesn't want to die. And so she begged me. She begged that I turn her into a vampire so that her strength may be greater than it ever was, and that, she wouldn't be sick, as I never got sick. And I had to make a decision, and I turned her to a vampire. Of course, she was so happy. She had survived almost certain death, and she was grateful for what I had done for her. She said that she was the only true friend that she could trust ever, and that it would be the only person she would want to love forever. And we got married. It was nice. I had someone to hold and to trust, and it didn't last long. The townspeople had figured out what I had done to her, and although they had just solely avoided her, they actively went to her, trying to attack her family, that which was left alive, and they called her names, slurs, freak, and it should be said that with great power comes great responsibility. All of these things angered her, and with her newfound strength, she felt that she was above them all. Why should they belittle her when she has the strength to conquer them all? And I saw her slowly change as her heart began to grow with power and madness. I started to see less and less of the person I knew and loved. Although she was almost gone, I felt like there was still hope for her. And she had prompted me that she wanted not only to take over the village that we stayed in, but that she would rule the entire continent and eventually the world, as no one could be in her way to stop her. I said I'd have to think about it. In reality, I knew from that moment on that there was no hope. The woman I loved was long gone, corrupted by power, vengeful and full of bloodlust. I had to take her down. I remember that night very vividly. It was November 12th, midnight. I had armed myself and I was off to go take care of her. And my mother had asked where I was going. I said to take care of some old business. And I didn't really elaborate, as I didn't want her to get involved. So I left, and I went to face her. She had grown far stronger than I ever did. I guess really all her anger was the source of her power. because I couldn't overpower her. Or I may have been a tad faster. It would take me 20 hits to equal her with the power she had in one. And the situation was dire. She had broken my ribs, and that she would be the new ruler of a new world, ready to strike me down. And I should have died, but that's not what happened. My mother had followed me, watched me from afar, tried not to intervene unless absolutely necessary. And where I should have died, my mother took my place. And she was strong enough to kill her. She did. And the world was saved. And as I would grow to learn and know, no one wins in a war. I had lost my mother and my wife that same day. And I didn't know how to live with myself. I wondered how I could just go back to living as if nothing happened. And the truth is, I never could. But without someone to live for, I thought my life was over. That life wouldn't be worth living anymore. But I knew that I couldn't just end it, because my mother, prior to contrary belief, she was a woman of the faith, and in turn she taught me about the faith. And with all of that knowledge, I knew that if I ended it that day, there is no shot I would ever make it into the kingdom. Your soul would be damned forever, forced to live in hell. That I didn't really like the idea of, because I felt so much anguish. It felt almost necessary, but as time went on, I learned that life moves on, and people come and people go. But I knew that I couldn't trust people with the powers that came with a vampire. They were something far too dangerous for the power of man or woman. But I would spend the next couple 100 years wandering the world, searching for answers on what to do. And the first guy I ran into, he was like I want to say he was Swedish, but it was funny, because although my Swedish was rusty, I did know that his name was Jack. And funnily enough, he was literally a lumberjack. I thought that was hilarious. And, well, it was. But as time went on, I truly began to understand that he truly lived up to the name. He would chop wood all day, and he would sometimes sell it to the townspeople, but it was really cold there, so he was always chopping for firewood. And he would have it dry out in this little drying rack so that the wood would be dry and that the wood would burn like warmer. What else? Oh, he was also like a woodsman where he would get like a little stump or like a tube of wood, and he would carve it out, and he would make like the animals of the forest. Like he had a couple owls, he had a couple of sparrows, I think. They look like small little birds. And then he had a couple wolves. The wolves looked a little derpier, but I get it. Like they're a bigger animal, and wolves can be very dangerous. So it makes sense that you can't look at one for very long without them like trying to get a pack or something to take down like something, you know? But he taught me some of his stuff, although I could never do it as well as he did. I could do it pretty well, but, you know, you just had to see it to believe it. And as I went to Sweden, I would eventually go east, and I would go into, not Asia, into India. And there was this guy who was teaching me about chakras. And I'm gonna be honest, when I got there, I thought he was full of it. Like he talked like he knew, but he didn't know anything. Until he tried to read my chakras, and he told me that my heart gateway was blocked, that something's troubling my past. And I just got annoyed at him and stormed off. But after I gave it some time, I realized that, you know what? Let's give whatever he's got a shot. Because clearly whatever I've been doing hasn't been working. So I might as well try something new. And so I did. And he taught me about opening chakras. And apparently there's 7. Although it's been a while since I've tried. I remember at one point he said I got the closest to ascending than anyone he's ever seen. Because apparently, I never saw any of this, but supposedly I was I was glowing gold, and I was levitating off the ground. Which, by the way, vampires can't fly. That's kind of a myth. I say kinda because they can glide, but that's not flying. Anyway, so, he said it was close, although he said that at my given state, I couldn't quite do it because in order for you to ascend to a greater plane, you need several things. One, you need full forgiveness in your heart, which as time went on, I was able to do, to forgive myself, that I wouldn't make the same mistakes again. But where I couldn't ascend was that I didn't have a set purpose. And because I didn't have a purpose, I didn't understand my place in the grand scheme of the universe. And so it was impossible for me to go any further. So I would spend the next couple hundred years watching humans from afar, seeing highs and lows of people. Occasionally, I would share my thoughts with them, and that's where my special powers come in. I was able to read other people's thoughts, and then if they talked to themselves, I would disguise myself as their voice and transcend my ideas onto them. Now, is it morally wrong? I'd say it's kind of in the debatable situation, but I have been alive for hundreds of years, so I feel like I have pretty decent judgment. But, I always try to steer them in the right direction, but again, I can't make them do anything. I give them my thoughts, and they do with that what they will. But I remember seeing you, and you were able, without me saying anything, you approached me, and you could tell something was up, and you tried to reach out to me and know what exactly was wrong. And then, I went and told you, like, some of the things, like, I felt like I didn't belong, that I was an outcast, and then I don't know my place in the grand scheme of things, and you just hugged me and said, that's life's journey, figuring out who you are. And I felt like I was so close, yet so far, and being how beautiful you were, I had prompted you if you wanted to go out, and he said yes, and we were hitting it off with coffee, and I just felt like it felt nice to talk to someone after so long, and it seemed like, and I'm not trying to gas myself up or anything, but it seemed like you were really into me, and I really liked that, but I was also scared, and so I was afraid that when you found out who I really was, that you would just see me like a monster. And so I spaced myself out, going back as I was, and then you reached out to me like you did last time, and I was low on blood, and thank you for that again, because I don't know what I'd be doing if it wasn't for you. But it was through all that I found a new purpose from the shadows, that life is full of stories. It has so many that are not told within one story, and that although they may be parts of your world, those parts have their own worlds, and their worlds are shaped in different perspectives. But when you became part of my world, I knew that my dreams, they wouldn't be complete without you in them. I love you. I love you, darling. And I feel like I can truly trust someone again. You've always been so caring and accepting, and yet you treat me like a normal person. You don't treat me like an outcast or a monster or anything. And you're doing a great job. I literally couldn't ask for better. And trusting you, I feel like my life needs to have you in it. That I'd love to be your partner for life, but if I can truly trust you, I would love to be your partner for all eternity. And I know I told you all of what happened the last time I tried to turn someone into a vampire, but you seem different. Although I don't want to press this on you as if you have to, or that I'll not like you if not. I understand that a human's life is very different. It can be short and fulfilling in its own way. I've seen that happen. And if you end up being only a fraction of my total life, then I'll cherish every moment that I have right now. Whatever you choose, I want you to choose it with your wholehearted honesty and not out of pity or fear, because the last thing I want is for you to arbitrarily choose and you face the consequences that those actions have, and you spite me for it. I know that none of that really seems like you, but the world's changed a lot in 600 years, and I don't know how different we will be if you join me for even the next 200. But again, all of this I'll leave up to you, and I'm sorry that I kind of press this on you at the end. But I felt really strong feelings about it, and I hadn't been able to shake it off since last time. So I'd love to keep chatting, but it is awfully late, and you need rest, don't you? All right. I'll leave it up to you then. Or rest, sorry. I'll be around. If you need me, just give me a holler, okay?